Do you remember when you learned that your father murdered Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes. It was about 10, I saw it on TV.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the most chilling instances of convicted murderers who reverted to their old ways while locked up behind bars.
Schaefer carries to the grave confessions, maybe where the bodies were.
Robert O'Neill. In February 1980, Robert O'Neill was sentenced to life in prison for murdering 78-year-old Ralph Roscoe Sherrick. The previous year, O'Neill had broken into the home of Sherrick's son-in-law, where he encountered and fatally shot him after robbing the house. While serving his sentence at the Missouri State Penitentiary, O'Neill joined the white supremacist group, the Aryan Brotherhood. His disruptive behavior in prison led to him being locked up in a special unit reserved for the most dangerous inmates. On February 3, 1984, he and two other prisoners attacked Arthur Dade, a black man serving time for armed robbery, and O'Neill fatally stabbed him with a homemade ice pick. He was ultimately convicted of capital murder for the attack and executed by lethal injection. Wyatt Busby.
Busby is 7 years into a 50-year sentence for murder and has a lengthy history of violent convictions.
Wyatt Busby was convicted of murder for the fatal stabbing of a man in Houston, Texas back in 2016. He received a 50-year sentence and was serving his term at the Cofield unit in Texas. While there, Busby shared a cell with suspected serial killer Billy Shamirmir. Between 2016 and 2018, Shamirmir allegedly murdered at least 18 women in Dallas and was convicted of 2 of those killings.
It took years to uncover the murders because the deaths were not considered suspicious at the time due to the age of the victims.
On September 19, 2023, the 2 cellmates got into a verbal confrontation which escalated into a physical altercation after Shamirmir reportedly made inappropriate comments about Busby's children. Prison guards were seemingly slow to intervene, allowing the situation to spiral out of control. By the time the 2 men were separated, Busby had killed Shamirmir.
Those who wanted justice for their loved ones don't feel sorry for the convicted serial killer.
Sunil Rathi. Indian gangster Sunil Rathi stumbled into a life of crime after his father's murder in 1999. 3 people were accused of the killing, and within 6 months, Rathi had tracked down and killed 2 of them, brothers Mehek and Mohkam Singh. These acts of retaliation landed him in prison for life. In 2018, Rathi was transferred to the Bagpat District Jail after claiming his life was at risk at the previous facility. At Bagpat, he crossed paths with Muna Bajarangi, an infamous gang leader and contract killer with political ties. Bajarangi had reportedly made denigrating comments about Rathi's appearance, which angered him. As a result, Rathi fatally shot Bajarangi on July 9, 2018, using a gun he had smuggled into the jail. Kevin Roby. If you watch the early films of director John Singleton, you might recognize actor Lloyd Avery II, who played gangsters in Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice.
What a punk! What a fool!
The line between fiction and reality soon blurred as Avery became a real-life criminal and received a life sentence in 2001 for a double homicide. Behind bars, Avery shared a cell with Kevin Roby, who was also serving a life sentence for sexually assaulting and murdering his sister. While Avery appeared to embrace a new path in prison, becoming a born-again Christian, Roby turned to Satanism. On September 4, 2005, Roby murdered Avery in what he claimed was a satanic ritual. Shockingly, prison guards did not discover Avery's body until 2 days later. Joseph Druce. Reverend John Gagin was a central figure in the Catholic Church's sexual misconduct scandal in Boston. Gagin was accused of inappropriate conduct with nearly 150 youths over a 30-year period. Ultimately, he was convicted of indecent assault and battery and sentenced to 9 to 10 years behind bars.
66-year-old defrocked priest John Gagin struggled to hold back his emotions after a jury convicted him.
In prison, Gagin met Joseph Druce, a fellow inmate serving a life sentence for murdering a man who allegedly made unwanted sexual advances at him. Druce was reportedly a victim of sexual misconduct in his childhood and was said to be outraged by Gagin's apparent lack of remorse. On August 23, 2003, Druce attacked and killed Gagin in his cell.
It was in my head. He brought everything back out of me that I tried to push away.
Although he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, Druce was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder.
The psychiatrist, got up there and said he was the most insane person he's ever seen. He really had no clue what was going on.
Jimmy Mack. The death row section of prisons holds some of the most dangerous individuals in existence. In 1999, Donald Leroy Evans and Jimmy Mack were among those housed on death row at Mississippi State Penitentiary.
2 days ago, a 12-member jury sentenced Donald Leroy Evans to death by lethal injection.
Evans was a notorious serial killer who is believed to have claimed up to 70 victims, although the exact number remains unknown. He was sentenced to death in 1993 for the sexual assault and murder of a minor.
Evans says he killed 72 people during the 1970s and 80s. He even led the FBI on a 2-day search for bodies in the Arizona desert, but they found nothing.
Mack, on the other hand, landed on death row for the 1990 murder of a man in Bolivar County, Mississippi. In January 1999, Mack attacked Evans with a shank, fatally stabbing him while he was leaving the shower area. He was convicted of manslaughter and received an additional 20 years to his sentence. Victor Castigador. Dubbed the Killer from Manila, Victor Castigador was imprisoned in 1989 for the murders of 2 security guards in London. The crime, infamously referred to as the Human Torch murders, earned Castigador a whole life sentence, essentially ensuring he would never be released. Among his fellow inmates at Long Lartin Prison was Sidonio Teixeira, who was also serving a whole life sentence for killing his daughter and attempting to murder his son. While little is known about their relationship in prison, things came to a head in June 2016 when Castigador fatally attacked Teixeira with a rock inside a sock during a workshop. Castigador was handed another whole life sentence and transferred to a top security prison, where he died in March 2017. Vincent Faustino Rivera. The murders that took Vincent Faustino Rivera to prison occurred in Tampa, Florida in 1990. Rivera was convicted of killing 2 people just 10 days apart and sentenced to life at the Florida State Prison. Also incarcerated there was Gerard John Schaefer, otherwise known as the Killer Cop.
I never thought that I would be that close to someone who was capable of doing those things.
A former sheriff's deputy, Schaefer gained notoriety in the early 70s for the murder of 2 girls. Although he became a prime suspect in over 20 additional killings, he was only convicted of those 2. In 1995, Rivera and Schaefer reportedly argued over a cup of hot water, which resulted in Rivera fatally stabbing Schaefer in his cell.
Schaefer carries to the grave confessions. Maybe where the bodies were?
However, rumors suggest that the murder was likely a targeted hit due to Schaefer's reputation as a prison informant. Rigoberto Sanchez Velasco. In 1988, Rigoberto Sanchez Velasco stood trial for the murder of his girlfriend's daughter 2 years earlier. He had confessed to the crime shortly after it occurred, only to later recant. Nevertheless, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. But Sanchez Velasco never seemed to change his ways, even as he sat on death row. In 1995, he and another prisoner, Mario Lara, attacked 2 fellow death row inmates, Edwin B. Caprat III and Charles Street, in the yard, in full view of prison guards and other witnesses. Both men later succumbed to their injuries. This violent act earned Sanchez Velasco 2 additional 15-year sentences. In October 2002, he was executed by lethal injection for his initial crime. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Christopher Scarver.
Do you remember when you learned that your father murdered Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes. It was about 10, I saw it on TV.
One of the most notorious serial killers in history was Jeffrey Dahmer, who claimed 17 victims over a 13-year period and was sentenced to 16 life terms.
People try to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years?
Dahmer was imprisoned at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, which also housed Christopher Scarver. Scarver was serving a life sentence for the 1990 murder of a man during an armed robbery. Dahmer and Scarver worked together in the prison gymnasium alongside Jesse Anderson, who was convicted of murdering his wife. While cleaning the gym on November 28, 1994, all 3 got into a heated argument that culminated in Scarver killing both Dahmer and Anderson with a metal bar. He received 2 more life sentences for these murders and was subsequently placed in solitary confinement. What other killers never changed their spots even behind bars? Let us know in the comments below.
You know what I mean? So be it.